Welcome back to part two of our generators and services series. So, recapping from our first video where we started to introduce generators and how we use them to deliver services, a generator is a generic plugin that queries data and creates new nodes and relationships based on those results. And we use those generators to create new objects, services, and other items inside of InfraHub, and that's determined by the generator logic. In this video, we're going to do a little tabletop exercise and loosely plan out what we want this generator to look like that we're going to build throughout the rest of this series. I've broken it out into 4 steps that should be pretty easy for us to walk through. And the first is the use case. So what we're going to do is create this generator so that it can help us automate our delivery of new sites. So our business, we deliver a lot of new sites, and we want to do that in a repeatable fashion. We want to make sure it's done the same way each time, and that's what we're going to work on. Our deliverable for this, we're going to be creating the devices inside of InfraHub, and then we're also going to be creating the artifacts that are needed to deliver in a new site. We'll actually be creating the artifacts in the next video, but we'll go ahead and define the deliverable now. So what do we need to actually bring those deliverables together? Or what data points do we need? What do we need out of that GraphQL query that we talked about in the first video to build this new site? Well, we need our hardware. We're going to need to understand how we're going to name the devices, and we want to outline what those relationships are going to look like. And then we're going to map out the workflow. And in this video, we're going to use pseudocode. We'll actually run it and we'll see it run, and then we'll dive into the actual code in the next video. Let's take a look at our design requirements first. So in the last slide, we talked about our hardware. So what are our hardware decisions that we need to make within the generator? Well, for this, we're going to use a simple single-homed or dual-homed configuration. So are these sites requiring some sort of redundancy for whatever the business need? We're going to have different ISPs in, or we want to have fault tolerance within the hardware. So for those dual-homed sites, we're going to create 2 routers and 2 firewalls and a single switch. And for a single-homed site, for whatever reason, maybe it's just less importance, maybe we don't have access to multiple ISPs, we're going to be using a single router, single firewall, and a single switch. Well, one of the hot topics in just networking and infrastructure in general is how are you going to name things? How are we going to keep those consistent? So as part of the generator logic, we're going to use a shortcut, a short name for the site, hyphen the device type, hyphen an incrementer, just 1, 2, 3, whatever number that device or the number of those devices at that site. And then the last thing we're going to define within the generator right now are the relationships. We'll get a little more into the third video, into more complex relationships. But to keep it simple right now, we're just going to make sure that the devices are being linked to the site. Now we're going to look at the workflow. And we're going to do this in pseudocode just to keep it simple for right now. So the first thing we're going to do is validate that site data that we're creating this for. Then if our homing is set to single homed, we'll create these single devices. If our homing is set to dual homed, we'll create the 2 routers, the 2 firewalls, and the switch. And then we'll link all of those devices into the sites. Now we're going to jump over to InfraHub and actually run this generator and take a look at our output. Here's our InfraHub environment. And the first thing we're going to do is actually create a branch to make these changes in. And we'll do that through the InfraHub CTL command line tool. All right, we've created that branch. And we can see it exists now inside of the UI. And we do need the site to exist before we can actually run the generator. So let's create the site we're going to test with. So we have our site set up. Our site prefix is CHI, and we've set it up as a dual-homed site. Go ahead and save. And we can see the site exists now. And we'll go and look at our device management. We don't have any devices. So now we're going to run the generator from the command line. we'll kick off the generator, and we're going to see some output here that I actually added into that generator script so that we could see something on the console while that ran. But you can see that we created the 2 routers, the 2 firewalls, and the switch. So we'll jump back into the UI, refresh that page, and now we can see the Chicago firewall has been created. We'll do this again, but we'll create a new site and we'll do it as a single homed site. So now we've created a single homed site for Indianapolis. And we can see through our output here that we created a router, a firewall, and a switch. Jump back to device management. And there we have our 3 devices for Indianapolis. So as you can see from our demo there, we were able to take that idea, that concept, our use case that we want to be able to create those sites. We want to do it repeatedly. We want to apply some logic to it. We need to use existing data that's in there from the sites. That's our GraphQL query. And we brought that together and we were able to create those 2 sites. In our next video, we're actually going to start getting into the code. We're going to break down how that works. It's very Pythonic in nature, so we'll be looking at some Python code in there. And then when we get to our 4th video, we're actually going to extend this out a little bit more. We'll start getting into those artifacts and building a more robust generator to really be able to build a new site for us from start to finish. All of the artifacts, all of the pieces that we need to make our jobs a little bit easier in the future. Thank you for watching. I hope you come back for the 3rd part where we start to get into the code. Have a good day.